Hey everyone, Spada Party here. I had a few people the last couple weeks asking me about PSA and Beckett submissions and a couple of differences and pluses and minuses to them. So I figured easiest thing to do is just do a video on it so I don't have to keep typing out the same thing every time. So first thing we're going to start off with is a couple of differences between Beckett and PSA. So if you look at something like I'll use these two. Flame Swordsman at a 10, Mystical Elf and a 9.5. So you've got Wavy. Beckett started attributing Wavy designation to the cards. PSA doesn't. It's a whole other argument in and of itself, so we're not going to get into that today. When you look at the labels, obviously there's a lot of difference with them. PSA does solid number scales generally. Very rarely do they get into a 0.5 territory like PSA, or like Beckett does. They do 8.5s and 7.5s and like 1.5s and that. They don't do 9.5s. The big thing with Beckett, however, is they do 9.5s, as you can see here. So, if you look at the labels as well, Beckett does subgrade attributing. So, if you look at this card, they grade it on centering, corners, edges, and surface. So, for a Beckett rated card, generally what you want to see is a whole whack load of 9.5s, and preferably if you can get a couple 10s, that'd be great. The way that Beckett works with their grading is if you've got 3 9.5s or 10s and one subgrade is at least a 9, they'll give you a 9.5. However, if you've got 3 9.5s and say an 8.5, they're going to dock you down to a 9, despite the average overall being high enough to round up to a 9.5. So, that's the big difference and thing you got to watch out with Beckett, is if you can squeak by with, say, centering on a card, and centering gets a 9, rest get 9.5s or 10s, you're going to end up with a 9.5 overall. With PSA, if, say, they think the centering is too bad to get a 9, you're not going to get that 9.5. They're going to bump you down to a 9. Good example would be something like this. So you got Pot of Greed. So, this is a PSA 10, this is a PSA 9. Only thing wrong with this card is the centering. The centering is off by quite a bit, pushing to the left. The centering on this one's nice. Cards are both of comparable quality. Oh, got some tape residue on the back of that one from when I got it. My bad. Generally, if I cracked this out of the case and sent it to Beckett, might get a 9.5. Realistically, probably would with my experience. This is a PSA 10 already, so PSA isn't going to give it any higher. Some people will take PSA 10s and try and cross them to Beckett, try to get Beckett 10s, because generally Beckett 10s carry extremely higher price premium. So the general rule of thumb, in my experience, and this doesn't translate over to every card hobby or anything like that, is Beckett 9s sell for a bit cheaper than PSA 9s, because most people who buy PSA 9s and are trying to cross to a Beckett 9.5, if they already see that it's gone to Beckett and hasn't hit a 9.5, it's not worth as much to them to try and break it out of the case to get a higher grade. So Beckett 9s are going to go for a bit cheaper than your PSA 9s. Beckett 9.5s generally sell for about 2 times the price of PSA 9s. So if I were to sell, say, this Pot of Greed for, just for the sake of argument, $100. PSA 9, $100. Beckett 9.5, you're looking at, say, $200. PSA 10, you're looking at double that 9.5 price again, at around $400. Now, that's not an exact science, it's just a general rule of thumb that I use. When you get into Beckett, they also have 2 different types of 10s. If you have 3 10 subgrades, And a 9.5, it's a gold label 10. Gold label 10s generally go for about double the price of PSA 10s. And then on top of that, you have a pristine black label. So a pristine black label with Beckett is 4 10 subgrades overall, which gives you a black label 10 instead of a gold label. And they generally, whatever the seller wants, the seller gets. Anywhere from 5 to 10 times or more the cost of a PSA 10. So, general overview with something like that. So, when I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to submit to Beckett or PSA, generally what I'm looking for is decent centering, no whitening, and, you know, no scratches in the hollow especially. If there's any hollow scratches and everything else is fine, generally I'm going to send to Beckett and hope that I can still get a 9.5 on the surface, or at least a 9. So this is just a general PSA sub I've got going out. Bunch of first edition old school hollows. Not everything in here is going to get a 10. Like, this is off center a bit, but might squeak by. Same thing with this one. Debating if I was going to send that to Beckett or not, but I've seen Chaos Command Magicians just as bad centering get 10, so let's give it a try. This is what I was talking before about the textured ultimate rare cards. Especially from Soul of the Duelist, they generally have whitening all around the edges and some bad waxing issues on the back. I'm just sending these in for the sake of grading them and seeing what happens. Some nice IOC, DCR, random mix. I might actually send that to Beckett. We'll hold on to that and see. Destiny board, like an idiot, trying to get consecutive numbers. Some more cool LON stuff. Get into a reprint Blue Eyes and Collector's Rare Toon Black Luster. So, when I'm trying to decide between PSA and Beckett, generally what I'm looking for, like I said, number one is going to be centering. If you're trying for a Beckett 10, centering is going to be the most important thing, because if the centering isn't bang on, and that's the most what's the word I'm looking for? That's the most plain as day, I can't think of a proper word for it, thing. If the centering spot on, generally they're going to give you a 10. If it's off by a little bit, they're going to grade you a 9 or 9.5. It's all going to depend on how bad the centering is. So if your centering isn't dinging on, and you're trying to get a 10 with Beckett, chances are you're not going to get even a gold label 10 if the centering's off. The opposite is also true with me, because if the centering is off on a card, I'm going to send it to Beckett to try to get a 9.5 instead of sending it to PSA to get a 9. So, like this Torrent Dragon, the centering is good on it, but, I mean, I don't know if it's good enough to get a PSA 10. So, we're probably going to send that one to Beckett. I'll put that in the pile, check it over later. When you get into different cards, another thing you're going to have a problem with in LOB is going to be whitening. A lot of the cards out of the packs even have the whitening dots on top. So, if you have any whitening, generally I'm going to send it Beckett instead of PSA. So, same thing you look at here with your cards. You've got centering. So that's a 10 centering. This is probably going to be a 9, maybe 8.5 centering. Just show you the difference. So that's glossy, and that's wavy. See the ripples? So that's the main difference there. The other thing you got to keep in mind is upcharges with PSA. PSA is going to upcharge you based on the cost of the card after it's graded, not the raw price of the card. So if you got something that's a bit expensive, you're better off just sending the PSA right away to see if you're going to get the 10 or not. If you think it's going to get a 10, because they're just going to upcharge you for it anyway, so you might as well just pay the extra money and get it back faster. So that's my main thing with all that. Beckett just charges you your price, and that's it. So you're not going to get upcharged with Beckett. Generally, Beckett sticks to their turnaround times compared to PSA. So if you're looking at getting something back in the time that you're paying for, you might as well send it to Beckett as well. So that's pretty well it for now. We'll do a couple other videos on other stuff later on. If you got any questions, just send me a message.